the progressive project is not just, a few policy proposals that we like. It is a wholesale proposition to erase and scrap Republican government because it's inefficient and because things have just gotten too complicated and we need enlightened bureaucrats and magistrates to rule the way that monarchs did. And so this is why when I say, when people talk about the EPA and the regulatory agencies and, Obama's different policies versus Biden's versus Trump's, right, you immediately your eyes start to glaze over. But every time that happens, just think, right, that even though it sounds very modern, it sounds very technocratic and sort of high tech, what it really is the most ancient principle of sovereign rule by individual fiat, right? It sounds like it's this progressive advance. It's actually primitive in the extreme. The best and highest form of government, the most advanced form of government, is ours because it is founded on the people's natural right to govern themselves, to rule and be ruled in turn, as Aristotle might say. And there is no progressing beyond that. There are certain absolute truths beyond which we do not progress. And every change just represents a regression, which you see very clearly here in Wilson's argument, right? In the fact that he's pretending to be offering this great new, hey, I have a great new idea. What if we just had one person make the decisions, right? Or what if that person was really, really smart? It's like monarchy, but do it with smart guys, right? And of course, right, this was a mistake at the time, and there were people who opposed it at the time. But now, in the wake of 2020, it is laughable, right? Basically, to read this guy, this poor bumbling fool, come along and say, well, what we really need is to invest sovereignty in kind of a organization that can keep track. Things have gotten so complicated, that we really can't rely on the people to make their own decisions. We need the smart experts to come in, like the geniuses that managed COVID. Right? Like the people that managed the pandemic, because that was so efficient and nothing ever changed, right? From the beginning, we always knew that masks were required. Dr. Fauci never, lied to us and told us that he didn't want masks, right? He never told us that one amount of vaccination would be okay and then upped it. The Biden administration never said, well, we won't require vaccines and then did, right? Of course, I'm being sarcastic here, right? Because we know what a thoroughgoing disaster rule by expert was during the COVID regime, and that countries which did not go, the few countries that didn't go down that path, the few states that protected their citizenry from bureaucratic overreach, right? Those were the states where people lived free and basically had, the same or better outcomes COVID-wise, right? And so the very notion that this form of government, let alone whether it's just, right, that this form of government by expert is actually going to work is laughable in 2020 and 2021 and 2022, right? This should be looked upon as the most primitive form of regressivism, right? This is just a ridiculous idea that this would work. We've seen it fail flat on its face again and again. The best experts, the best military experts in the world, right, led us into disaster in Afghanistan. 20 years of failure, right, followed by a catastrophic disaster on the world stage, right, in our withdrawal. COVID-19 showed us what these people believe and how good they are at their jobs. The answer is not very. So leaving aside for a second, right, the question whether it's just to have sovereignty invested in a monarch, which I've already told you my opinion there, but just look for a second at the very idea, and you'll find that it's ridiculous to say that you can invest. The best way to make these decisions is by precisely the procedure that Wilson rejects. That is the gradual persuasion among competing classes of opinion, right, until eventually we reach a compromise and a consensus. That is exactly what James Madison said this country would be founded on in Federalist Paper number 10, and that is exactly what Wilson said we should scrap because we've moved beyond it. History has proven him wrong.